Oh, I think we got audio. Oh, I think we got audio. Oh, I think we got audio. But we got a reverb. Oh, I think we got audio. But we got a reverb. Oh, I think we reverb. Oh, reverb. Oh, reverb. Oh, reverb. We can't have reverb, can we? Mic audio. Desktop audio. Default. About that? Nope. No. No, definitely not. No, we don't want that. We want that disabled. We want that disabled. What about that? No reverb? Oh, yeah, no reverb. We have gotten it to where we need it to be. Outstanding. The stream is about to start. Behold, it has started. Oh, the joys of 3D modeling. Getting to see a blank page and knowing you've got to start all over again on something. Always a good feeling. It is. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, we have gathered here together to build something cool. For those of you who missed out on the other 10 episodes, we have been progressing through building a whole bunch of models that hopefully are really cool and are ready for 3D printing. We have since built several different objects, of which we'll go over later. They're all over in the Facebook page of Simple Polytricks. All you have to do is go look that up and you will find all of them. But tonight, we are doing something extraordinary. We are going to figure out, I should have actually wanted to prepare for this first. We are going to make a bridge. Another one. Yes, another one. God, get over it. It's cool. We're making a cool rickety wooden bridge tonight. But this one has to follow parameters, specifically to that of a battle map that I am going to be using at a later date for a convention. But you got to know what the dimensions of that file is. So we're going to go into quick access, desktop, D&D. I've got maps. And this particular map is what's going in, and it is, let's open it up with Photoshop. And it is 17 by 19 right there, 17 by 19. So that's what we're needed to remember. So we're going to make a plane. First of all, we want to make sure that we are on, oops, We are in units, millimeters, system units, millimeters. We want to make sure all that's good and plenty, because good and plenty is a delicious treat. And this is the one we're going to be using. 17 by 19. I can't do math. 25.4 is 1 inch. And we need to times that by 17 because there are 17 of them, just like there's 17 inches. Believe how this is how you do math. Or you can do it this way. You can make a box or a plane in this way, just a flat plane. Oops. Right click that to cancel. And we make it 25.4, 25.4. That's an inch. That is an inch right there in millimeters. And now we're going to go in here and say we want to do it 17 times. Is that 17? Well, let's see. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. It is not, but that is 9. That's 17. And then we want it to go up 19 times, but we're going to do it 18 because we learned our lesson. Woo! That's a big piece of paper there. So that's oops. Can barely even see it. That's 17 by 19. And so what we're going to do is, now that we got it, we just want to make it one plane instead of a billion different little, planes. We just want to make it one because we can make a whole bunch of segments. 17 by 19 right here. Or is it 19 by 17? Aha! I do not want the planes. So what we're going to do is select all that. Up here, there's Toggle Scene Explorer. This is something we haven't touched before. Why can I not see myself? There we go. This Toggle Scene Explorer allows you to go in there and actually see every single object you've got in the scene. And right now we've got buttloads of them because I made a plane 17 by 19 multiplied by. That's a lot of planes. It's 324. Actually 323 because the number 324 is our big enchilada, the big one. So I just want all but the last one, like that. And we just deselected that 24. And hopefully we've got it made. That's a plane. Plane number 324. And now that we've got that, we're going to say layout. And what we're going to do is we're going to apply a map to this. How interesting is this? The map editor is up here. It can look either like this, which it has 2 lines of it, but by default it will look like a box because Material Editor is in 2 forms. The compact version, which is what this is right here, it essentially has just a few little Dobbs balls up here and a whole bunch of really crazy stuff. Or you go to Mode and go to Slate. And it eventually loads up what needs to be loaded, which is what I prefer. The Slate Editor. It's the exact same thing, but the layout's different, and you have a little bit more visibility on what you can do, and you see how all the material shaders, when you make a texture, how it comes together. But before we go to this, I want to turn on V-Ray, which is immaterial for anybody else other than me. I just happen to have it, and for some reason I have not set it up to start up by default. V-Ray is a plugin, costs money. It allows you to add better lighting, better cameras, a better system into 3D Studio Max. There's V-Ray for just about every program out there, 3D wise, I believe. It's not that expensive compared to how much, Max and Maya cost now. But what we're going to do is we're taking that map that I showed earlier and we're just going to apply to it. So I'm going to right click here in the basic scene, go to materials, go to V-Ray, which is in this case what I want. You'd be going otherwise to general. Once it loads up, it's having a little bit of, it had a little bit of a spasm. If you went to general and you went to, is it under scanline? Yeah, scanline. You would go to standard, and that would be your standard material that you would want to start at. You don't have to worry about any of these. But for those who are cool, have V-Ray, and we add a V-Ray material right there. Now this is your basic shader. We can apply it to our object by this little thing, this icon up here. It looks like a spray can to me. And it just does that. And basically, it's assigned this gray color. If you double click this, you can bring in this thing. And this is diffuse is another name for color, your base color. And it can be anything you want. You click on that little square and you can change it to whatever color, and it changes accordingly. So it's immaterial because we're going to be adding a map. And a map is a short for like bitmap, which is typically just about any image you can come across. Any JPEG, PNG, TIFF file, Targa, even though no one uses that anymore, even GIF files, they're all bitmaps in a sense. And we're going to apply one by clicking this little box to the right. And the top one is a bitmap. And it takes you into where you were. And I go to desktop, I go to D&D, I go to final maps, and I bring up Swamp. It then assigns this adorable little picture and it tethers it like it's a child to a mother. It shows that it's a map, but it doesn't show on my daggum object. It has these little white corners. That means that it's good to go and it's isolated to that object. But I can't see it. Why? Well, what you got to do is select your material, and then there's this hidden little button here that should be always default, but it doesn't. It says show shaded material in viewport. You got to click it, and it comes out. Oh, still does not show anything. All it does is show this weird kind of green look to it. Well, you can close out that because right now, maybe not. Let me do one more thing first. Because one of the things is it has this use real world scale, which you don't need. You turn that off. That's one thing. That's one step. The other step is you got to apply a modifier to this thing. It basically, you have to tell it the shape of what this material is that you just added, this map. It doesn't know that it's a rectangle that's 17 by 19. He has no idea. So you've got to tell it, and by doing so, it is a modifier at the very bottom of the list, all the way down, UVW map. It's one of the most basic, fundamental modifiers that you'll ever use in Max or Maya or whatever. They have different names depending on the program, but it's all the same. It's just a coordinate. It has by default this real world map size. Just turn it off. And because it is a map, this is just a plain old flat image. Nothing too fancy. It's just a flat piece. It is automatically going to fit. Now, it even fits perfectly to my grid because I made it 17 by 19. And you can actually see if I turn off my actual white grid, which is the actual physical 3D model, you can see that it lines up pretty daggum good with the actual drawn grid. For those who don't recognize this is a map that is from a module that I will not mention because I want Twitch. And even showing it probably is not good. I do not care. If they want to come after me, they are more than welcome to. So what we're going to do is build this bridge. And I want it to build it not just to scale, because I'm going to be printing this off. So you can see up close, it is 2 inches wide roughly, and then a buttload long, which is roughly around 19 inches, but it curves, it has a little side track, so it's going to be actually longer than 19 inches. I do not want to make this one piece. My printer only prints off about 8.5 inches by 8.5, maybe 9. It's not the 12-inch big behemoth like Lullabots does, or CR10 for that matter. Those are other printers. This one needs to be printed in sections, and I also want to be carrying this to a convention, so I wanted to be able to break this down because it's going to take up a lot of space for all these models. So where I'm looking at is literally the sections right here, right there, right there, and right there. Why they have this one flat but this one not, I have no idea. But really, this piece here that's a parallelogram, if you see it, it's a parallelogram. That's what they're called. This should be a parallelogram as well. This one should be equal to this. It should not be at an angle. I don't know why they did that. It's kind of stupid. So that's what we're going to do. We're actually going to make it so that the straightaways are going to be perfectly straight and the two angles are going to be parallelograms. Okay? And we're going to build it basically right off this bad boy. First of all, we want to build the supports. Remove the supports, which is all these pieces here, these side pieces. And you can see they're all different, which is good. We're only going to build about 3 or 4 of them that are different, and then we're going to just copy them all, because who cares? No one's going to care. So we're going to make them a box to begin with. That's good enough size. How tall are we doing this? That's a good question. And what we need to do is make us a box that is cubed 1 inch. And we do that because now we're going to actually put kind of an idea of how big we're going to get this. I want this thing to be dynamic. I want it to be off the ground. This is a swampy area. Most of this area right here is partially covered with water. This is nothing but water, and then partially covered with water. The only dry land is these little bitty green pieces right here, right here, right here, right here. Everything else is wet. So this is going to be actually off the ground, and I want it to actually physically be off the ground enough that it feels like you're actually off the ground for a reason. So if that's the case, we want it to be at least 1 inch off the ground. And I almost want to see what 1.5 inches looks like. Ha! Don't we all? Okay. Nope, that was definitely not what I wanted to do. How about we try that again? I just took the middle part of the bottom and copied it up. That's 1.5 inches because I took the half and overlapped them. Looks like it's all one piece, but it's not. That's 1.5 inches, and that is pretty daggum tall. For this encounter, I am going to be running a game. And please, for the love, if you are watching this right now and you are registered or about to register into a game at Origins Game Fair 2018, if you're playing a Wednesday night game and it has to do with Vrath Keep, Vraath, at this point, and you're seeing this, please just ignore this entire episode, and or at least for the next couple of seconds while I say this. So, for those who don't playing this, this is a Hydra encounter. So there's going to be a massive, like 5-headed Hydra that's going to be sitting over here in the water. It's big, it's bold. I've got the model for it. It's going to be a Colossus fight. The thing stands several inches tall. So I think would be cool is that the bridge could be tall as well, so that you're not necessarily on eye level, but you're like middle of the eye level. So I think that's pretty cool. So we could do like 1.5, and then it still towers over them. That's what's going to be cool. So let's do 1.5 inches. To find out, basically we just go in here and I'm just going to throw in a couple of segments. something like that. I don't really care. We're not going to be doing a whole lot of deformation on these things. It'll just be a little bit. They're going to be immaterial. I want to make it. Take the vertices in this case, select all the vertices, and I'm going to align tool to the top of. Oh, that's delightful. Undo all that. Top of the Z. Top Z maximum. Maximum top. Minimum bottom. Maximum top. Minimum bottom. And so now it is sitting at 1.5 inches. However, that's 1.5 inches. That's where I want these pieces to be where the minis are. I want this to be the actual platform, not necessarily because these posts here are going to be taller because there's a railing to this thing. I'm going to have the railing deliberately smaller just because it's going to be kind of annoying. But yeah, I want it to be bigger than that. So, and this is why we're going to test it out, because it may not work, but we're going to see. So right now, what we're going to do is actually make it even bigger. So let's make it go up. Right click that so we can type in the move transform section. In this case, I want to go up not a full inch. Or do I? Maybe I do. Let me see what let's put a little figure. Let's do our typical figure boy. What is that? 12.5 and 25. It's wonderful that I keep remembering all these minimum millimeter things. X and Y, center, because we want to put it right there in the middle, and then hit apply. Then go to Z, and then so you just are doing Z, minimum, maximum. Minimum of the target, the current object, minimum side, the bottom to the maximum of the target object, which is this. So minimum part going to the maximum part, bottom to the top. All right. So right now, if I were to make this railing, it would be kind of stupid because it looks like the railing will be as high as a human, which means that it would be something like a covered bridge, which we definitely don't want to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy this down and go to the middle. Yeah, let's do the middle. Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Oops. We don't want that. We don't need the bottom one. Alright, we'll move him out to one side. We don't need him. This is just going to be a representation just to show what height, how high I want that base to be. It's going to be right there. And then now we're just going to basically build this railing system. It's going to be pretty simple. Go to the top view, hit F4, hit F3 actually. Go to your vertice. I do not have an adult beverage. I just now realized that. Go to Momento. It's important. I have returned. Apologies for that one. I had to get some Magners Irish cider. That is not a manly adult beverage. It is just something that wets my whistle, and it tastes all right. I do not have any of the good scotch tonight. That will be on Wednesday. I am basically making the wood looking like it's not chiseled. Will this be visible when it prints? Absolutely not. There is no way this small of a pillar is going to be anywhere near big enough for it to be really recognizable. So what we're going to do is basically copy this over, instance it, because we're not going to make any more deformities on this, and we're just going to rotate it. This is the one time I don't have my snap angle tool right here. That'll rotate the thing in increments so that you have more finite and control in your rotations. But right there, I just rotated it randomly because I don't want consistency. Make a copy here. Make sure it's still instanced. Actually, before we start doing that craziness, we need to keep track of our naming systems. We have it box 001, and we're going to make a whole bunch of these. We really need to make sure that we've got this thing up to par. So we need to call it vert post 01. And then we'll make the copy vert post 02. Yeah, that's what we want. Rotate it like, I don't know, 45. That's fine. And then make your copy. Instance. Rotate randomly. And then copy again. And if you're really good, what you will do is fairly well ignore the picture, because we're actually going to be doing the 3D peaks. You can actually go in here and put it right on the line if you want to, and then that way everything is pretty good on geometry wise, on math and things like that. When you add stuff to it, you know that the center of these pieces are right on the line. Now for this one, stupid one that happened, I don't know why they did this. I'm going to do the same thing, and it's going to do that, and then the thing's going to turn to the right. That was a terrible drawing that way. Oh, and we probably want these pieces right here too. It won't be on the board, but it will be. It'll just be there for support. So you have a piece. You don't want this piece up here. If it's that high up, you don't want it hanging from this piece. It'd be a full inch overhanging. It can be that way, but why not put a support there just to keep it more structured? This is going to be a tall, top-heavy piece, but with all these legs on there, it'll just keep adding more and more to the support. So that's a good thing. You can go ahead and make these pieces a little bit, change a little bit on the, I kind of screwed up on this, but if I go in here and move it up, if you rotated the pieces enough, then check that out. Because you rotated them, all the pieces did the exact same thing. They all went up. That the same vertice that you picked just now went up, but because you rotated them, they don't look consistent, so they still keep the randomness. See what's important about making sure that the randomness when you're making these copies are such. Let's go to save as, because I haven't saved it yet. Back. This one is going to be wood bridges, and this is going to be wood bridges. What is the size of this one? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it'll be a 2x6. And yes, we're making a whole bunch of these, and that way they all put together, but we need to make them separate, and then we'll just bring them all together into one STL file. For right now, I just want one 2x6. We're all just going to concentrate on just this one piece. We're not going to worry about the rest of this yet, because I want to save this separately, and that way, whenever I am printing out later, whenever I want a wood bridge or the customer wants it, they get to choose. They don't get stuck with a big-ass long bridge like this. They can go in there and say, well, I just need a 2x6 and I need a 2x3 and that in one angle piece. Okay, well, then they go and print this 2x6, the 2x3, and one angle piece, and they're done. And they can bring them all together into one STL file. The nice thing is we separate, we perfectly organize exactly where this is sitting in the scene. So like, for instance, and this is what's really kind of cool about 3D printing. It recognizes coordinates. So let's say we're over here real quick. I've got, let's say this represents a bridge, okay? And I've got several different other bridges, but they're all different sizes. If I would to save it exactly in this position, right in this scene, from, see the origins over here, if I saved it exactly in this spot, assuming that it was within the size, typical distance of the printer, and I saved another different item, let's say it's over here, and then I saved another one over here, and then I saved another one here, another one here. Let's say that all 5 of these are different 3D models. As long as you save them individually, exactly in this spot, in other words, just save that one by itself, just save that one by itself. Then, when they are ready to print, they can import whatever one of these they want, whether it's all 5, 2 of them, 3 of them, 4 of them, whatever, and then they can bring it in and it will automatically come in right there and right there. So they would only have these 2 and it wouldn't interfere. The nice thing is once they bring it in, they can make copies and things like that. They can always move stuff around once they bring it into their slicing program before they actually print. But it's just a convenience to the customer and whoever's printing these out. If they just import it and it's already lined up, ready to go, where they don't have to do anything, that's just one less thing that they have to deal with and one more thing that makes them happy. All right. So with that said, I'm going to make now probably the base part of this. It is going to be kind of a unique thing. So what I'm hoping to do is I want to have a actual base part that goes the entire span of this, an actual solid solid rectangle. Okay, it won't really matter what the top and bottom is because I'm going to put the wood planks on top of it. But I want to have these pieces actually be what the thing actually rests on. I want it to physically hold it up. And to do that, we're going to do the same thing on all of these. We're going to go to our front view, and what we're going to do is move to L, and I want to move this up so that it's like about right there. And it moves all the other pieces up there as well, because it's all instance. We're all doing this together. It's one for each other. And what I want to do here is I want to make a ledge, an actual ledge right here that comes out. That's kind of a ring, so that the thing sits down on top of it. I'm going to put holes all the way down into the rectangle so that it just fits right down onto it and everything will hold itself up. Gravity will keep itself up and there'll be no glue needed. And the nice thing is there'll be a hole so the pieces will go right through it. So how do we do that? Let's make more edges. So select the top part here. And what we're going to do, actually, no, let's select the bottom part, and I'll show you why later. Because I want the main piece sitting right there, and I want to have this little ledge to be thick, because it's going to have to be sturdy enough to hold up something. You'll see what I'm talking about here in a second. I'm going to click on yeah, I'm gonna move this up a little bit. It don't matter where you put it at. It really doesn't. But the farther down you come, the stronger this thing's going to be. Okay? Because keep in mind, this thing's got to hold up some weight. So I'm going to put it right about there. I'm going to take the polygon. Let's select it so that all of just that area is selected. You follow me? You see what's coming? We're going to go to bevel. We've done this before. Go to bevel, change the group to local so that it comes around the central axis. And then we're going to extrude first. Oh, baby. You see what's happening? You see what's happening? I want to go 5 millimeters. And that will be good enough. Do I need a taper? Absolutely not. There's no need to taper. There's no need to do anything. It's just how it is. It's very simple like this. The nice thing is you can insert these pieces with it upside down. So you just insert it, put your hand on it, then just turn it right side up. That's pretty simple. This is going to be so good. All right, I'm pumped. Now that we've got the base here, that will basically just hold it up. It doesn't really matter what we can adjust that thickness later if we want to. Right now, it's good where it is. I want to make this, however, right now it has a huge overhang, and that's not great because overhangs make bad printing. So we're going to select just the inside part of the bottom part of this piece right there, and we're going to bring it down. And what we're doing here is bringing it down to where it's hopefully like that. You can actually bring it down even farther if you want. It won't matter. It's a preference of look. Keep in mind, this is for a little swamp, and these are elevated sticks, so it's going to be kind of primitive. There's not too many wood bridges out there that go over a swamp that doesn't have some age to it. If you make it too modern, then you lose the genre of fantasy. If you're making it a modern bridge, well, then it's a totally different design for another day. So this is going to be good because now it prints, and it should be high enough of a vertical that it'll just make circles around and around and around itself and not need supports. Okay? When you go into your slicer program to experiment to make sure that to see the supports before you print, if there's a whole bunch of supports here, that means it's not sharp enough, and you need to bring this down even farther, way down there, like that way, until it comes to a point where you can print it without supports. But these should not have to have supports at all. So that's good. Let's save real quick. And now that we got that, now we're going to put the base down. The base down. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make a spline. And the reason is because we're going to be making holes in that in the base plank. And polygon, the geometry, when you make a box like this, they don't like making holes in that. Putting holes into putting holes into geometric shapes like a cube here means that you have to use the boolean tool, which is what we tried to use earlier. It's a tool that fuses two items together and also is a cutting tool. It's a complicated system. It doesn't really work every time. It's not as efficient, so it's better just to avoid it if you can. So we're going to go to Spline under your Create tab. Second from the left is your splines. These are all lines that make geometric shapes, but they're all 2 dimensions. They're not 3 dimensions, which is what the button to the left is, which says geometry. We're going to make a rectangle. We're going to hit F3, and actually at this point we can just isolate just this map because we don't need the supports anymore yet. So what we need is to basically get this thing, and you see how it's a little bit off from the drawing? Well, this really needs to be on the drawing. So make it snap to the grid rather than drawing, I said that wrong. So it needs to be fitted to the grid, not the drawing. The drawing is going to be a little bit off, as you can see. It needs to fit to the grid perfectly. If it overlaps, so like if you lay this model on top and there's not quite so much lining, the model will dominate the image. So they will see the physical model before they see the mismatch of the drawing below. The drawing below is just a figment. You don't have to worry about it. And it's only representational if you're putting a bridge on top of a drawing that already has a bridge. If you remove this bridge in the drawing and just use the battle map itself as the river, then you're good to go. You don't even have to worry about it. And then the bridge is already snapped to 2 by 6, so you automatically will fit to your grid. So that's all that matters. So now that we've got that, we want to end isolation, bring this turn off snaps, bring it up, And right now, we're not quite there yet because let's get him out of the way. Because this goes through some of the pegs, it doesn't quite line up very well. So what we're going to do is I'm going to select just my pegs. I'm going to go to group up here and go to group and put vertical posts. That way it's all one piece. If I click on one, it selects them all. I want to do that because I want to take the rectangle, I'm going to align it to the group itself. Now, if I didn't have this grouped, what it would do would be it would align to this one pillar. But because I have it grouped, now when my line tool does, it aligns it to the entire group, central point of the entire group, which is around here. So check that out. So I push this button, turn off Z because I want the X and the Y, and I want both to be centered. And that did exactly what it's not supposed to do, ladies and gentlemen. You see what it did? It basically aligned to one of these individual posts instead of the whole enchilada like it's supposed to. That's not very nice. I'm going to isolate this and double click that. I've got it centered right there. See how that anchor point's right there? This thing should anchor to the actual object. And as a result, it's kind of finicky lately doing this. And I bet you it's because and it's one of these settings here. Typically, it's supposed to be that's good enough. But for some reason, it does it real weird. And I end up having to go through all these to find out which one it is because they don't add up at all. I'll have to fix that one of these days. I think it doesn't seem like it attached very well. See, it didn't even work that time. It's like it's a bunch of hoopla. Sometimes Max does not want to cooperate. Oop. I had it. I did. That's crazy. All right, so that did it. Well, no, it's a little bit off still, but I think it's good enough. Yeah, it's still a little bit off. Well, fart knocker. Oh well. So we're gonna add an edit spline here because we need to change the size of this spline here. And right now, when you make a spline and you add an edit spline modifier to it, it automatically defaults to what's called a Bezier curve. And a Bezier curve is all of the vertices, just like any other object, there's vertices in splines, okay? And a Bezier curve has these little green dots on either side, and they are handles that allow you to move and bend the spline. Now, this is strictly for splines. Geometry doesn't do this. It's just for splines. And by default, it sets to Bezier corner. And what that does is it allows you to have a 90-degree corner, but then still have one of the other directions bend. See how the other direction's not doing anything, which is this one right here? That allows you to do, these handles are independent. If you change it to Bezier, then it would be universal. All right. I don't want to use Bezier, so I select all my pieces, right-click, and go to corner. That eliminates all the Bezier because I don't want any curves. I want these nice straight lines. And here I want to move so that it is somewhere. Well, let's get F3. Let's end that for a second. I want to get this so that it fits perfectly, but we're going to freaking have some problems. I have a sneaky suspicion. Let's get this box, make a copy of it. I want to move it to right there. I'm going to move it right there. All right. So basically, I wanted to have it set so that it will be an anchor point so I can use to align pieces with, because I know this is going to be the top. If I look at the top, this is going to be the end point of this particular 6-inch bridge. So I want to select just these top here. I want to select the align tool, cancel out all this. And all I need to do in this case is I want to go this way. So I need just the Y in this regard. It's set to center, which that's why it's aligned to that. I need the maximum, which is on the top. Minimum is on the bottom. So now it's set exactly to the grid, and that helps. And this one, if I hit F3, this one automatically is already set to the end of the grid here. Boy, maybe I screwed that whole thing up, because we're going to have to move. How are we going to do this? How are we going to do this? Because I want to make these bigger, so they're going to have to, yeah, it's going to have to go wider than, the edge. So basically what I want to do is I want to make this base piece, and it has to go wider than these pegs, not the outer ledge, but the inner piece, because I want holes in them so that it lines down onto it, slides right onto it. So they're not going to be able to fit right on exactly. And part of the problem is these pieces are not aligned like they should. So I want to move this piece. Where's my cursor? I want to move this piece down, and then I want to make a piece. No, I want it to move to the left here. There, because that's my edge. I want all of these specifically, just this right row. Right row. You see how it's not on the line? And it was because that daggum drawing screwed me up. So the centerpiece, I do not want that. Why do I don't want to bind on space warp. Just right click, move to move. Okay, there you go. Move, cancels that out. I want to detach these pieces from the group, and I want to make a group of itself so that it is right down the middle of these things. Now they look off-centered, but they're right on the row. If you were to draw a straight line, you could split them right down the middle. I want them to be aligned right on the center point. So I want the X. Oh, did right there. And click on OK. So now you can see that, dang it, it's a little bit off. Little bit off. I want them to be spot on the money, and that's important. So let's see if we can't move it. And if we move them to there, gonna have to do it the hard way, boys. Hold on to your butts. Let's open it up. And I've got to do it the hard way by move it. I'm going to grab each one of these. And that looked actually pretty close. That one doesn't. Oops. That one looks pretty close, but again, it's safe to check. That one definitely looks off. Okay. Now those are on. Now it makes me worried about the other ones. Yeah. So that's going to be the whole point. These have to all align perfectly, and you'll understand once I pull my head out of my butt. Come on, snap. Let's do it this way. Oops, don't want to grab the grid. I want to grab this. Make sure you're grabbing the right thing and not the grid. Okay, get rid of close, ungroup. That way you have it all like this. All right, now each piece should be precisely, because we didn't move the center piece, the center axis right there. It is universally in the center point each place. So now that we have that, then now this is theoretically not perfect. So we're going to go back and do that again. Go back to the spline, make a rectangle, and then I'm just going to make a quick one right here because I know it's going to be 2 by 6, like that. It's 2 by 6. And I'm going to hit space and S for snap. And yep, Java is ready for update. I can't wait. And then I'm going to snap it back to the grid. So now I've got it exactly where I want it. It comes up and it splices right down. So basically what I want to do at this point is expand on either side, on all sides, so that they this piece easily encompasses all of those pegs. So let's go back to edit spline again. Go back to vertice, and because we just made this, it's got those green lines again because it's going to default to Bezier corner. I hate it that it does that, but it does that. So now that we've got it back to corners, we can end isolation. Go to vertices, and what we're going to do is we're going to essentially move to, it could be easier to do it this way. Use your align tool, turn off everything but Y, and then go to maximum. And that assures that it goes to the very edge of one of these pieces. And that's going to give you plenty of space. Do the same thing for the bottom. Go to minimum, and it goes to the edge there. Now that goes over the map, but again, it's just important just to go ahead and do it that way. We're going to switch over from the Y, select these right, select any of these pieces on the right, clear your Y, because we're going to the right now, which is X. Just like this red leg says a little X right there. And we want maximum because we want it all the way to the right. So it stops at that point. See how it's on the outside now? Do the same thing. And we're going to go on any of these and then make it minimum now because we're going to the left. And now that we've got it encompassed like that, now we go in there and have it selected. This is kind of an important part. So right now I want to make, boy, that's not going to work, is it? Because this piece is not right at. It's this piece right here that doesn't want to go anywhere. Well, that's just how it's going to happen. And then the angle will have an overhang right here, and it'll just butt up against it. That's the only way it can do that. We may have to, that's something that we're gonna have to worry about in a bit. But right now, let's get this thing actually looking like it's supposed to be. All right. So now I want to select this edit spline, this rectangle that we got here, and go back to your create tab. And in this case, I want to make it easy, I want to uncheck this button right here. Right here. And what that does is it automatically, whatever I select here to make a new spline, it adds it to the existing thing I have selected, which in this case is the rectangle. And it makes it one piece. Now, the problem is I've got this thing cranked up to the top here. See how high I've got it up here off the Z axis, which is where the plane is right here. It will automatically put the object on the plane at 0. If you make any other objects, even though this object is up here, it will put another piece down here and it'll make it one object, so that you'll have the spline up here and then you're gonna have a spline down here that doesn't line up very right. So cancel out your height before you make a new spline. I'm at 33 millimeters. Click it on just the Z so it goes back to 0. Isolate it. And now that we have this unchecked, we can go in and make either rectangle, or you can make it a circle if you want. It really doesn't matter because it's just going to be a bigger hole than the pegs are going to be. If you make a circle, it's kind of cool. It might fit a little bit better, so we'll do that. We're just going to make a circle anywhere, and we make it as big as we want. That's fine, just as long as it's within that piece. Now, if we go to the front view, you see how it's all one line? They'd aligned that circle, and if we move it, it's one piece. It automatically does it. We can keep making a whole bunch of splines now, and it will automatically fuse it to that existing piece. You can make as many as you want, and the benefit is that once you go to your modifier tab with this and go to extrude and extrude it up, it automatically puts that hole in there for you. See how that's nice? It works a lot better doing it that way. Let's go back to end, isolate, and go back to your top view. And right now, all we can do, we need to do is just make this one circle the size we want. We can make copies within this spline. We can make this circle, we can copy it all over the place, and it will keep making holes in your initial rectangle, this overall rectangle. That's the power of the spline part. So we need to move it around here to where it will open up so that it will fit not on this big piece. This big piece is going to have to be bigger. The radius of this needs to be bigger than the radius of this, so that when this thing comes down, it stops on that piece. But it needs to be big enough that it goes over this initial piece right here, but not so big that it's kind of crazy. So let's shrink it down a little bit, but not too much. Just enough. I want it to smoothly come down and not roughly. And now I want to move it over here. Actually, let's make sure that this circle is perfectly lined up with this intersection, because that way, because all of our pegs are perfectly lined up, if we make this circle perfectly centered around this piece here, as well as all the other intersections, then there will be no overlapping. So everything will be nice and consistent, and it won't matter which of these pegs, which order of these pegs you put in here, they'll all fit in that no matter which way. For instance, if we go up here, and we can see how it's a different orientation, but the circle's still big enough, it'll fit over these, each one of these, without any problems. Okay? So first things first, let's select both the grid and our rectangle. That's it, and isolate it. That way we just have these two pieces here, okay? And we're just going to make a simple plane. And we're going to turn our snap tool on and snap it there. We can cancel out all these segments because it remembers it from last time. Just cancel them all out. You can to make it easier for you to remember, you see this, what you're about to make, you can put 2 segments on there just so you can see that it's separate than the regular grid. And you don't even have to make a copy. It's just that's it. And we're only making this so we can have an alignment object, something to align to, because right now you can't align to this thing. The only way you can align to this is the outer dimensions. You can't isolate just to this point right here. It will not work that way. You can't just go, I want to align it to this spot. It doesn't work that way. You have to have a corner, a point, an end point, or a midpoint, or a center. That's how alignment works. You also have pivot points, which you can get into later. You can actually go in there and customize where the pivot is and align to that, but we're not going to get into that. Right now, it makes it much easier. Just make this box here. Go into our modify panel, go to spline, which is like polygon. It's just a whole piece. You select on it, selects the whole thing right there, but not the rectangle. And we want it to align to that corner right there. We moved it just a tad bit, but it did. It's spot on the money right there. Now you can see it's right perfectly squared. We're going to close that down. Actually, may not have to do that. Well, it depends. I don't know if I've got my snap set to center. Centered snapping doesn't work very well. When I say center, I mean the dead center of an object. This piece here. You can snap from all of these edges, but you can't snap. You can set your point like when you turn on your snap. You see how it's snapping all the way to the edge? You can make it in the center, and it's only snapping right there is because I've got an object there, and it piggybacks off this object. And I can do that, but it's going to just grab the wrong piece. It's difficult to snap from a center point. So it's easier just to take the spline and align it to this, but in this case, go to maximum just on the Y, because the X is where we want it, and we want to, we did not make a copy. Let's make our copy. Clone, copy, not instance this case, because it's all in the same object. And, oops, I take that back. You cannot make a copy of an object. Interesting. So you can't make part of an object. You can't make copy of part of an object. So this is all one object, this rectangle and circle. You can't make just a copy of this like that. But you can do that, what I just did, because I held down Shift and just made a copy of it. It's just right there. And it's still part of the whole entity. It's what I was telling you earlier. Move this around and it's still one piece. So you take this piece and align it back to this square. But you don't want the X because you want it to stay right there. You just want it up here because we're all on 1 inch areas. Make sure it's the Y, make sure it's maximum because we're on the top, not the bottom this time. And we're going to move this over to right here because we want these two pieces, make a copy, hold down Shift, align. Now this time we turn off Y and turn X on. Valdez. So it's copied right smack dab in the middle of that. Now, to continue on our little quest, we can go in here and make a plane, make it all the way the rest of the way, and oops, no we can't. Make a plane to there, and now we can make our copies, just these two. Make a copy, align to that, turn on your Y, turn on minimum, because it's on the bottom, Y going that way. Make a copy, do the same thing. Now it's center, because it's in the middle of this piece. Make a copy. And now it's going to be on the maximum. because it's at the top. Finally, do the same thing for one last piece. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We need it to go up a little bit. And we're going to make a copy. And we're going to try to align it to that. There we go. I don't know where that square's gone, but there he is. He's gone. Deleted him. All right. So now we've got our little pegs of hole. We have our little holes. We can unhide all this. We have our holes. We move it up the Z, and you can see how it. Yeah, baby. It basically is going to fit perfectly right down those pegs, and then once that piece fits there, then that will hold up all of your pegs. So we go in here and now we do extrude, which I have it saved up here, but it's in your drop down menu right there. It's right about there. And there he goes. It extruded it for me about 9 millimeters, which is more than what I want. I want it to be about 4. Because if I move this thing over here, I want to see where it is. And it still looks a little bit tall. About 3.5. Yeah. That's not quite 1.5 inches what I wanted, but it's close. So now a good 3.5 millimeter piece of plastic is going to be fitting down on there, kind of like a 6-pack of rings that hold those together. And you do this by either basically doing it upside down. So you hold it like this, and you put the pegs in upside down like this. Put your hand where that plane is to hold them in place, and then rotate upside down, and then just set them down on the ground and move your hand out of the way, and then they're up and ready to go. And now you've got this really kick-ass vertical elevated plane here. And the top part here we're going to put planks on, so we don't have to really worry about it. I'm not going to worry about the holes because, see, the thing is the planks are going to go in between separately, because it's really going to start screwing up things if we start going crazy with adding dimensions to this hole, because these holes right here are precariously made in this object. So when we export it, it'll print fine, but we don't want to do a whole lot of geometrically modifications. We don't want to move things around on this platform, because those holes are perfectly drilled right now, and if we start moving vertices around, it will cause that top polygon. This whole thing right here is one polygon, and it's just holding on for dear life with all those holes drilled into it. So we want to do as little as we can here, but we can go around the edges, which is just fine. And what we do by going to edit poly, actually, and then go to edge, and then go to select the top pieces here. I said the top pieces here. And the bottom pieces. Okay? But not those blasted vertical pieces. Because we're going to make vertical edges straight down, a whole bunch of them. And that's what's going to pop out the side and make it look like wood planks underneath the wood planks. And really, actually, we don't need them on the side. We just need them on the ends, because these if this was built for realistically purposes, the bedding of this would actually go lengthways. So all your boards would be long down here, not sideways like this, because your top planks go this way, side to side. Your bottom planks go lengthways that way. So we really just want this end And the thing of it is, most of these are going to be butted up against another one. So we actually can't do really much with it, but we can do a little bit. So what we're going to do is do connect. That is not what I wanted. I did not want... See what this is what I'm talking about when we're doing connect? It's not pretty. It's because those holes. It's all those holes. So let's try it just simply on one side. Let's see if it works. Nope. See what happens? It fills up all the holes and causes all kinds of artifacts and things like that. That's not good. So let's try again. What about just cut? This may not work either. I'll isolate, so I'm just cutting just what I want. Middle to middle. Oops, middle. Well, that worked. Let's do that again over here. Middle to middle. Oop. Cut sometimes doesn't want to work. Middle to middle. Make sure there's not a whole bunch of cuts all over the place. Okay. And then middle section to middle. And I'm just gonna do 4. I'm not gonna risk it. I think that's gonna be enough because they're gonna be meaty anyway. Well, dang it. Dang it. I want it right on that yellow. Yellow to yellow. It's not... Doesn't want to cooperate. Alright, so there it is. Now we're going to try our best to pull these bad boys out. We'll do just the ends. And we'll see if we can't pull these out. Just a bit. And then pull this other one out. Just one of them. Not as far. Just so we have a little bit of inconsistency. See like that? It doesn't matter that we can't see, the top part is smooth because we're going to cover that all up with wood planks. So you're not going to actually see there's no lines down there. And that's fine. I'm going to do the same thing to this one, but what's going to be different. This one will come out that distance. And this one will come out not quite so far. Now, one of the things that's an issue is that I believe we made, So we extruded these two pieces together, outward at the same time, and they're butting up against each other, which kind of, that may be an issue when you're printing, that may not be. It's something to consider. Sometimes printers do not like to have two polygons right up against each other. Other times it just says screws it and prints the whole thing just like that. If not, you'll have to go in there and actually make it so that this extruded piece is one and not this extra. You can't, that piece. In other words, it's going to have to be just, see how that's full? It needs to be just from here to here. These two need to join together. But right now, I think you can get away with it. We'll just try it like it is. All right, there's my boards. Good enough. Now, only thing you can do here to make things different is to go in here and see if you can slice it down the middle. I don't really think this is going to work. I'm going to take away, I don't want the holes sliced. I just want the sideline. The reason is because there may be two planks here that are on top of each other. And that might work. So I doubt this is going to work because it doesn't like it. It sure enough did. It worked just fine. So I just want one slice. I'm not asking for much. And then actually, knowing that you did this, you can actually go in here and we can back this thing up. I didn't even think we could do that. So we can see if we can back it up all the way. I don't think we can. Nope, that's as far back as we can. Dang it. Close. Close enough. I backed up almost as much as I could. see, but it's probably going to be good enough. So let's break these in a little bit. And then this time we'll do it this way first before we extrude all the way out. Move to the top, deselect the holes because we don't want those. We don't need the holes. Make sure that they're not selected at all, just the outer edges. Click your connect. Just need one, like that. And now go in and, not element, poly, and extrude. And now you've got a little bit more dynamic. Go out a little bit, bring it in. Something like that. And that way you've got different pieces of plank wood coming out. Very simple like. Just like that. Alright. Now we need to end isolate mode. And we can see how much farther out this thing has gotten than we wanted. And that's going to be an issue because really don't want, I mean, this thing is actually, I'm kind of curious now. It is almost to the next level. It's almost a 2x7. I don't mind things up against each other where there's a little bit of a gap in this regard, like something like that, because it is kind of a random bridge, and you can push it together pretty close. That's not going to be an issue with people. They're not going to gripe too much. If they do, they can get a life. But that is excessively overhanging that piece there, and that makes it difficult to make the next piece. Man. Makes me think I'm going to have to redo it just a little bit and remove these two pieces on the edge. That's what's going to have to be done. So I lose these pieces here, so we can copy this modifier later. We might be able to apply it later because we're not going to do much to it. And we're going to go to top view, go to spline, and we're going to remove the top and the bottom pieces, those two pieces. And it is going to be overhang in this case. I didn't want to do it this way, but this is going to be how it's done. Select your bottom two pieces and align it on the Y to minimum. And the top to minimum. So they will, you don't need these anymore. I'm just going to hide them for now. That's how it's going to be. It's going to have to be like that. And then you can actually paste what we had to begin with, and nope, it didn't. Sometimes you can paste a modifier back onto it and it works, but no, it didn't. You have to redo that. But yeah, that's still going to be sturdy, and that's not going to have a problem, so I'm not too upset about it, but it does kind of suck that I wanted to be a little longer than that. But the nice thing is now, it is going to be perfect on the length there. So what I want to do is I want the boards to come out still, but I want the boards to be up against that. So we're going to actually move it back even further, just a tad bit. Let me see here. -2. Oh, that didn't even get to where I needed to be. There we go. Now that's spot on. That box is a little off. You see that thing? It's a little off. So I had to get realigned. All right, and then this goes up -2. Oop, 2. So they're both 2 millimeters off the grid, and that gives me 2 millimeters worth of extruding on the planks. Now, here's something cute you can do if you really wanted to. You can use the planks as a locking system, but it's kind of a pain in the butt to do because they all have to be universal. So like one piece is going to have to be a certain way, and then the other side is going to have to be the exact opposite. So you can have like a big plank here that comes out, and then a big plank that goes inward. And then over here, the big plank on this side would come out, the big plank inside would go in, and that way when you put the two together, orientated right, they lock into itself, and they actually will fit. You can do that with this piece, but the problem is you would have to make multiple ones because the way this thing is built with the slanted parallelogram, if you were to put the male end coming out this way, and let's say a female coming out this way, so it would lock in, it would fit in. If this was the opposite, yeah, there would be issues. So you'd have to print off multiple different ones, and that may be a little bit more trouble than it's worth. It would eliminate the need for having these ends, but because they would be already up against things. Let me think here for a second. Yeah, let's do it. All right. So let's go back to what we were doing earlier, so that we just have the edges selected. Let's connect those. I just want one because I don't want to get anything more complicated than it already is. And this one we're going to go isolate because we have to cut these things back down to size. Get the cutter tool of your polys ready to go. Turn your snap on. And make sure you're going from the middle to the middle to the middle, like that. Do the same thing for the other side. Middle to the middle to the middle. Oop. Middle to the middle. Stupid thing. Cutter sometimes doesn't like me. All right. You can make it plywood, I guess. You can make it really easy and it's just 2 pieces, which that might be a little bit simpler. Back that up. Sorry, sometimes there's numerous mistakes that we make. I want it without that. And I want just the middle cut. I'm going to make this just as simple as possible. And I'm going to select both this and this size because there's going to be opposite. It has to be completely mirrored. And I'm going to bevel. And what we're going to do is we're going to remember exactly on the front view what we're doing here, because this is important, because the other piece that we're about to extrude, this size, has to fit into there. So this is going to have to be bigger than what we're usually used to of the other size. So we're going to come down. Not by much, but the problem is when we extrude this, it's going to be It's going to be awfully dadgum thin as it is. So let's go at 0.8. That may be just way too thin, but we'll see. Okay. Oop, I did not mean to do that. Let's go back to bevel. 0.8. Before you go doing anything like that, push plus. After you've got your bevel down like that, push plus. 0 to back out, and then extrude it inward. And we had it at 0.8, and now we're going to do it 0.2 millimeters. That should be enough. Now let's make it worse than that. Let's make it 0.4 millimeters. See what I'm doing? We're going to make a mail-in on this side, and then the mail-in on this side, and that way it automatically, no matter, you could rotate this thing and put it up against itself, and you make multiple pieces of this. So do the same thing over here. But now we're going to make the mail-in, and it has to be smaller than this. So this whole 0.4 thing is not going to work. So we had it at 0.8. I can tell you right that will not fit because it's the same size. It has to be smaller. And I want to say at least 0.2, and I usually go 0.3, which means 1.1. That should fit. It looks like it should fit a Mack truck in there, but it's crazy how difficult it is. And then push plus, and then 0 that out, and then bring it in. We had it at negative, not in, outward. We had it at 0.4. If we made it 0.4, there's a good chance that this piece here puts so close to that wall there that there's a little bit of a gap right there. That may not actually fit perfect. The way to do that then is to make it 3.8 or 3.7. And then hit check. So you got 0.3 millimeters of a gap that this piece here and that piece there, they'll be 0.3 millimeters. But because there's a gap, it means that this piece will run into that piece quicker, and there will be a good mesh between the two. So now you've got this piece here, and you got that piece there, and those two pieces will actually fit now. Isn't that cute? All right, let's save this. Saving. All right. So now that we made this ingenious move to actually do something like that, which was totally unexpected, but why not? Now the problem is they go over the line, and that's kind of an issue. So these things need to be exactly where they are supposed to be. Well, right now they actually are pretty good, but I want them, when they get to join together, I want this line, this edge here, I want it to be right up against there, because these pieces are immaterial. They're going to be inside the models on either side. So that's not going to work. So we want to add another edit poly, and we are going to make this piece here, this whole line here, spot on with that one. In order to do that, the easiest way to do it is to go in here to your actual plane. This is the grid that we've got selected. And go back to your regular plane and add an edit poly modifier to it. And the reason why we do that is because we get a vertice now. And we can select a vertice here because this is where we want this line to line up to this one. But we can't just grab we want the distance here, this separation here, and the separation here to stay consistent. So if we select all of the vertices at the end of this platform and try to align it to this line right here, it will take all of these vertices, it will flatten them into one line, and then it will align it to that piece there. Because it's taking everything you've got selected. And if you have just these selected, and that's it, and ignore the vertices here and vertices there, then this thing will shift, and all of a sudden this female end will have a much bigger gap than this, and this will shorten. So you've got to select the vertice here, where you're wanting to go. Right-click your Move and Transform tool. And it gives you the coordinates of where this vertice lies in your origin. And right now, with this y-axis, this is the direction we're going. This is y-axis. It is sitting at negative 27.558 millimeters off zero. Okay? All you got to do is get there and copy it. All right? Now that we know how far it is, well, I'd say that, and it actually was totally wrong. That's usually what I do, and I just go to here and then move it. But in this case, we're going to have to do a little bit of math. So this one is 25.558. And if I'm not mistaken, this was 27.558. So the difference is like 2 millimeters. So what we can do, knowing the distance between that, we go over to this offset screen. And you basically tell it a distance of coordinates. And right now we want to go downward in our screen, negative 2 millimeters. And that's what it does. We all already know because it's going to be universal on both sides because we've done the math. So it's going to be 2 millimeters vertical. So this is going to be 2 millimeters positive on the Y. And you're lined up. Now you've got a nice, even, perfect 2x6 with a male and female in. So the pieces will fit no matter which way you angle it. You can rotate it. And sit here, make a copy, and watch it as it fits inside. Woo, woo, woo. Things like that. All right. So now that we got that piece there, now we can start finally making our planks. I'm just going to leave this piece here as a standard platform. No one's going to really care because stuff's going to be on top of it. It's going to look cooler. So in this case, let's just make some planks. Start with a box. I'm going to isolate just the platform because that's what's going to be. And I don't want the planks from here to here because the holes are going to be in the way. So they're going to be like moments. Well, I mean, you could go in there and make planks this size, and you can make planks. And you can make planks this size if you want. Like that. You can do that if you want, but then you've got to figure out how to, I mean, it's got to fit perfectly again. And that may be fine because these are all going to fit just, yeah, man, actually, that might be actually way better. Let's give it a shot now that I've said that. The way we're going to do that is we're going to make a whole bunch of planks, and then we're going to fuse it to a very thin platform itself, and that will fit again. It'll fit like a sandwich. It'll fit right down in between those pillars, and that way you can have nice, everything stays consistent. All right. So this plank right here is going to start. Just make it. I just wanted to make sure that the same width from corner to midpoint there. That's fine because we're going to change it real quick. Don't want that. I want to keep that. I want that to be there. And let's make these 4 millimeters in length, and we're only going to make these like 2 millimeters tall. That'll be just not even that, maybe 1 millimeter. That looks better. That's going to be 5 layers. So if you print off, I print off usually 0.5 or 0.15 rather millimeters per layer, which means you get a lot of layers before you get 1 millimeter. And that's 1 full millimeter, so that's plenty of, that's going to be strong enough. So let's put this thing right there. And I want to make this a little bit edgy. I don't care about this side here, so we'll just ignore that. We're just going to worry about the top here. But basically, I'm just put an edit poly modifier, and I mean, you can make these as detailed as you want. Man, you know what? We should. Dang it, we're cutting our client way too much. Make these things drastically high resolution. Something like that. You can even do more if you want to. Didn't seem like 12 at all. And it wasn't. It's 14. Okay. Ah. Alright, and then now we can go in there and we can select just this top row. Screw the bottom. And we can add a noise, I think. We might have to put a poly select. Let me see if I can do this without it. Wow, excuse me. Wood isn't that bad. I don't want it that way. Fractal. There we go. There we go. Kind of uneven. And then, I mean, that's a plank. It looks like a clay plank that looks way too bumpy for its own good. Let's bring that down a little bit. I just wanted just a little bit of an inconsistency where it's warped and got some knots. Now, the next thing we can do that really will make it shine is go to Edit, Poly, hit F4, and then select a couple of these like that. And watch me now. I extrude outward a good ways. You know, 1.5. That's a pretty good healthy ways, and then come down. And again, 1.5 seems to be fine. And now all of a sudden, I've got little inconsistencies in the wood. Now, what you can do is if you, we're not going to do it that perfect because the wood doesn't go that line, doesn't have that kind of a line to it. We need to have more inconsistency on this. But that's basically what we're going to do. So instead of it all the way down, oops, I need to back this thing up because it went way farther. Okay. So what we're going to do now is we're going to offset the lines that we have so that hopefully offset this thing. So I guess we could have done that way. Let's see here. I'm trying to select. I want to deselect. Where's my line across? There it is. And then deselect there. And what I did was I just have it selected where it zigzags right there. And that may not be realistic, but it's close enough. I'm not going to go in here and make weird, crazy long lines. I just don't want them to be straight. And then deselect that. Actually, that one looked okay. So I've got 2 pieces there that do that. And then have one final piece. It just goes right there. Don't want the sides. I just want these pieces. And I'm just randomly grabbing them. You can spend way more time on this, but, you know, I'm not going to have enough time to do all as much detail. I'll do it on my own. Like I said, when I print stuff off, I end up reprinting stuff because after I've noticed what I've done, looks good until I print it, and then it looks like crap. So now we're going to go back to this 0.15, 0.15, negative. Like that. And that's good enough. We can try to put a turbo smooth on, see what happens. Oh, it's not too bad. But then again, it looks kind of crappy. I'm not really thrilled at all about that. Doesn't look like a real plane of wood. We are going to work on this new piece. Actually, just delete what I had. Delete, delete. We'll cut the noise out. We'll use that later. We'll just replace it in there. All right, let's get this wood actually looking better than it did. One of the things that I didn't like about it is that we have too many dadgum segments. Let's just make them as we go. Because I want to have just a couple of pieces. I want a big piece at the one end. Let's go connect. And then move it to one side. And then I want another piece here. Connect. That's, oops. Get back there. And 4, I want this piece here to be split. So I just want that, and I don't even really want the bottom piece. Does it really matter? Because you're not going to see it. And then I want to split this bad boy. And I'm going to split it wide. I'm going to split it deep. And then I want to bring this back out because this is going to be flush. Let's see, that's x-axis. Copy and paste that. And I want this to be as well. Because I want the piece to be on the top split, not the bottom. And now I want this to all be conjoined. Like all this, I don't want it to be, or you can basically just, I guess you can pull it out more like that. Yeah, see, that looks like a split. That looks like a legit split. Maybe a little too big, but we're printing, so we want to make it a little bit exaggerated as we go. Now we want to do something over here on this side. Let's make 2 splits. So we want to make a split there. I want to make it so that it's perfectly straight. And now we're going to make a little cut right here. But let's not make it quite so far this time. Let's make it that way. I want to exit, so X plane over here, so it just flattens that out. And now we can go in here and go to our edge. double click both of these, go to T, deselect everything but that little section there, and then we're going to extrude that. Well, baby, a little bit excited there, folks. And I don't want to do both actually now, because I want these to be separate in size. So this one's going to be a little wider, but not as deep. And we'll move this piece out further. This one's going on the x-axis, so we want to put this one back flush with it, and this one back flush with it. And then it needs to be z-axis. You need to copy it to bring this down so that it's all flush, because the top part is what sucks. The bottom part doesn't. Hey, everybody, by the way, man, there's a lot more people that jumped in just all of a sudden. I think I got bombed. Just like spiked on the normal people that just hopped on in. Hello. Been so engrossed in my work, I forgot to drink. Let's do the same thing, but we're going to do it a lot narrower this time. And deep. Let's see, we want this to be the same. We want this to be the same. I want this to be the same, so it's nice and flush. And we don't want this to be quite so far out there this time, so that's really good. So now we got a nice little plank there. Can we make a little knot in it? Yes, we can. And this is how you do it. Because you don't want it to be high. You want the knot, even though the knot is supposed to come out, like a knots do, you're going to inset the knot, which may not look as good, but it's going to look okay. You want to connect, and let's do one for now. Well, you can do two, I guess. It doesn't really matter. And you want to deselect one of them and hit X so you can flatten that out. Select the other one, exit, so that you can flatten it out. These two together are all you want, right there. And you're going to have to go to vertice, actually, and go to scale, and scale it down. We've done this before. And make it decent size so that it's actually a part of it. And then do this, move this one down. We're going to move it off the axis, I know. That's just part of it. It's one of the rare times I push lines that's not level. And because the thing's going to go right here. So here we go. We're going to go downward. So bring it in just a little bit and bring it down a bit. Hit plus, zero out everything, bring it in just a tad bit to, let's say, there. And we need to add a lot more size to this and shape to this because it's kind of rectangular-ish. So let's bring it in like this. And then we want to connect twice there and twice there. Don't worry about going any farther because we're just worrying about this central piece right here. Now, as best as we can with the 9 segments we've got here, we're going to try to move just by scale and movement together to try to make as best of a circle as we possibly can. And it's not going to be exact. It'll just be because who cares about getting it exact? And then once we got that section, then we bevel extrude or bevel again. Cancel out everything, and we're going to first, oops. Yeah, we're going to extrude first and bring it in. Hit your plus, cancel out, make sure that you're not any higher than you should be, which you should not be any higher than what it is, what this plank is, because if you have it any higher, it's going to be kind of annoying for the thing to, it's going to be like a little thorn in the side. It'll be okay. Don't worry. We'll fix it. But now we got to go downward. Excuse me. And to do that, we zero it out, bring it down, bring it in. I'm just making this up. Zero it out, and then bevel it in. But bevel it just enough where you're not overlapping any of the polys. That's good enough. That's not a knot, but it's close enough. All right, now we need to just smooth this out so that it looks like it went basically inward without having such a big cavity here. So leave the knot as is, but now we're trying to smooth this down by having all of these on both of these sides selected so that it slopes downward, but not so drastically that it looks like a hole. Matter of fact, if you want to do it to all sides, you can. We'll see what it looks like. Something like that. And now we can go in there and tighten this bad boy up. Tighten. Just do whatever we can to make it so that it goes in like that. And it looks like there's been a hole and then it just filled itself up by plugging itself in. You can go in here and smooth out these corners by bringing them in, scale them inward like that. You're just basically replicating the circle of the knot itself like that. You do the same thing for the top, the very top. Like this. And scale. Now you've got a hole that kind of looks like a somewhat of a hole, and it has a little bit of a knot to it. Okay, let's save this again. It didn't do that right. 602. And then this is 603. I didn't quite know how to name that because I ended with a number. Okay, and that's plank number 1. Now you can go in here and change a couple of planks, but you're going to be making duplicates more or less. Excuse me, of the same one. Do not instance the first couple of them, because you're going to make about 3 of them that are random, and then you're going to instance each one of those as is. So first of all, mirror that one, and then you're going to go in here and change this things up a little bit. You're going to go in here and move this one over, longer, shorter, and tighter. You're just making it so that it looks like it's different. Doesn't matter if it is or not. You're just looking like it's different. Hell, if you really were crazy, you could add another knot on this side if you want to. I'm not going to, not in this plank, but maybe the next one. All right, and that goes up against there. We'll align this later. It doesn't matter. And then we flip it back like that. Now all of a sudden, we've got a little bit of inconsistency, but we just need a little bit more chaos to where people start to look at it as a whole and not saying, oh, I see the repetition now. So this one, let's go ahead and see if we can't do something crazy here, because I am going to add another knot. 2 of them there. And what I'm going to do is X that out. X that out. I want to make these 2 pieces Y scaled perfectly and Y is scaled perfectly. Why are we doing this? It's because we're going to go in here and chop this thing out like a sardine. We need the same number of polys up here, 1, 2, 3. So we need to chop this up, 1, 2, 3, just like that. Hit F4. And we're going to take off just the top. Just the top. That's it. And we're going to take just the top. And we're going to move it over here to the side. Just copy it over to one side. I know this is crazy, but just hear me out. Clone to element. That way it's still part of the element. And then we're going to clean this up real quick before we put it into the hole that we've built right there. So first thing we need to do is move stuff over here. We need to get these basically pieces to where these extra ones are gone. These extra ones, it needs to be just like this size right here. First of all, we're going to select any of these vertices here, collect the X, and that way it's all on the side, because we need to bring this and this down to this line so it's all flush. Do the same thing, do the same thing. Now we can get rid of these extra vertices that are straggling behind, because all we need to do, just target weld these things. We've done this in the past. Just target weld them, and then you can move this bad boy in, and it's just about ready to be joined with its family once again. Check this out. We got this just selected here. We move this on the x-axis right back into here. Okay? Isolate this bad boy so we just have this plank here. Now this piece, this red piece here, is not joined with anything, but it is attached to the plank in its as being an object. But we haven't fused anything together. But we have just enough resources here. We can basically fuse everything we want to, because there's the same number of polys in everywhere. So we go to target select or target weld and go to town. Just on the top, because that's all that matters. Go all the way around. This one's by itself. Did I do that incorrectly? Let me make sure. Let's see. This one goes here. That one goes here. This one goes here. That one goes there. This one goes there. This one, let's go there too. That's how it is. Boom. Boom. I figured out the puzzle. Look, Mom. I did it. It really sounds like there's an actual congregation outside in the hallway right now. And I'm kind of anxious to... I'm anxious to go out and see if There's people mingling about that need to be socialized. All right, so there's your second little knot, and I just put it in there because I could. Check that out. And we unhide this, and now we've got 3 different planks with knots and cuts, and you can put cut in between here if you want to. You can make a 4th one, just make it just with cuts and take your knots out. That's fine. Matter of fact, that's totally fine to do that. That's your 4th plank, and then that way it'll be more than enough. Goodbye, Mr. Knot. And all you got to do is, can I select the, yep, flatten that one. Get your border and flatten the X so that they're both X'd, and then just bridge that bad boy. Click on OK. Don't need all these extra pieces. That's silly, because there's nothing that those are connected to. Go back to your border, select border, cap it. If you want to do the bottom, you can too, but it doesn't really matter. But you're going through border and cap it. No one's ever going to see down there. There you go. Very easy. Leave the segments in there. It doesn't really matter. What does Turbo Smooth look like? Absolutely disgusting. Magically delicious. That's just because I haven't tightened up. I haven't put segments right here to tighten those corners up, so it's making it look like a jelly sandwich. You're more than welcome to go in there and add to it. I mean, that's what it's going to look like unless you tighten them up. To me personally, it's wood. I don't think it needs to be softened up. But now you got 3 planks. Now you go in here. You got 4 planks if I can add right. You can move 1 more plank here. Yes, you can. And I will, I can't even remember how to align this bad boy. Spacing tool, align, quick align. I think it's spacing tool. I can't remember this. It's basically just erase it so that they're in perfectly good alignment. Let's see. I don't want to pick a path. That's a spacing tool. Line. Well, that's what we do all the time. That's stupid. That's not what I want. It's the align tool. I want the spacing tool. So maybe it is a spacing tool that was alright. Oh, I always hate doing this. It doesn't matter. There's a way you can like make these things where they're perfectly spaced out, because right now they're kind of individual, but that all looks like it works just fine. It doesn't overlap the hole, and I think, can 5 fit in between each one of these then? No, they cannot. 3, ooh. 3 can. Yeah, 3 can easily, are perfect. That's the magic number. You want to instance these because they'll be the same. Now that you've copied these 3 over to here, you want these to be instance in case you want to just change these 3 and then the rest of them will change. And no one's going to know. You just keep copying these. Instance, you can rotate them. Put it back. You just keep flipping them back and forth. And then you take these 4 and move them down here, but rotate them. And that way, when they get bumped up to this one, it just keeps going like that. There's not really that much of a repetition. They're sitting right there looking pretty. Make sure that they're actually on the plank and not overfearing the hole. Boy, that's a close hole. Ooh, baby, that's close. All right, but there you go. And then the next one you go is very simple. You take one of the middle ones or this one or whatever, and you go into the middle. Don't click instance, click copy. Go to vertices and just bring the bad boy in so that it's inside that hole. Like that. It's not going to fit. And then if you want to make it like fit, just stretch it out. It don't matter. It doesn't have to be the same plank size. You kidding me? Who cares? So now you got this piece. So now you go in there and you take this one, do the same thing. We're running a little bit over time, but that's okay. Get this little segment done. Stretch it out a little bit. Just keep them oops. Okay, no, that works. And then move that right there. And then, yeah, you could have instanced that if you wanted to, but I'm not worried about right now. Yeah, there you go. So now you got your little tiki bridge. And if you want to add railing to, you can add railing to it. I'm going to take all of these pieces, every one of these, and they're going to be printed together. So when I raise this up just a tad bit, what I'm going to do is take this bottom piece. Actually, I'm going to just take this piece for now. And all I'm going to do is zoom, 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 and a boom, boom. Just check me out. I'm going to make basically a box with the general. I don't even care. I'll line up all these later. But basically, I'm just going to be making zigzag pattern. And eventually, I get them up as close as I can to everything, so that it all works out real well. Click close spline. And assuming I get those all lined up well enough, I don't want that, I want extrude. And I just want a 1 millimeter, 1.5. And this is going to go underneath, resting on the top. And then all these planks are going to be fused on top of that, so that when this whole thing comes down from the top, all the planks are going to be one piece, because they're all going to be fused with that base piece that no one's ever going to notice. And then that way, that fits so perfectly in between everything there, and it keeps it nice and locked in there. It ain't going nowhere. And then it just sits right on top of that. So now you've got a little bit of a piece there, but it kind of elevates it, gives it kind of a more dynamic feel to it. You can almost see through it, so you can put some paint in between it. And now you've got this cool little plank system here. And hell, if you really wanted to, you can have people walk underneath it, because it's 1.5 inches, so people can actually walk above and below it if you really wanted to. So you can have things hidden underneath it now. That's pretty cool. So that's just one piece. It's a 2x6, and if we go to top view, we can see that it's exactly 2x6 with the 2 male and female ends. And then we'll go in there on Wednesday. If actually, I'll probably do this tonight. I'll make the side one, this one right here, and then you just take this piece here, and you can make whatever you want from this. This 2x6, you can make it 2x3, you can make it 2x5, and whatever you want, and keep adjusting it because this is the main piece that you're adjusting. Everything else is open game, but this is the only piece you're adjusting. And that's not that big of a deal to go back and change the edit spline and get back to where you were on. So that's fantastic. That's cool. I like it. I love it. I want some more of it. Let's see if that actually saved right. Okay, perfect. 5 minutes over, unfortunately, but that's just how it goes. Celebratory chug there. Now, that is basically what we're going to be doing. We will worry about more on Wednesday. We'll probably be doing something totally different, but this is a nice little tool on showing just how do you make kind of an elevated platform for 3D printing without having many supports. And you don't even need glue. So all this stuff is dynamic to where you could put this together, all these pieces together in literally 2 seconds, and then make your own board however you want, depending on what you want that particular moment. And it has a kind of a nice little elevated look to it. You can adjust these pieces to be shorter if you want. You could take them completely off and just lay it on the ground, and just this platform's on the ground, and now all of a sudden you've got more of a lower level one piece. I mean, for that matter, like I said, you can go in here and take all of these pieces, make a duplicate, and put them underneath, and now all of a sudden you've got a double-decker bridge here that has enough height that you can actually put a mini almost down below. Actually, you can. He's really tight, but you could put it down there. And he's not going to go very far because you put your fingers in there. You can't move him. But yeah, you could theoretically fit him underneath there. So that's all the cool stuff that we could do with that. So, all right. All right. That was fun. Thank you so much, guys. As always, I really appreciate everything you do and coming in here for your support. Be sure to check out Facebook, Twitter, whatever. Mainly Facebook. That's where the renderings go. That's where the printing photos, the photos of the prints go. That's where the latest information about the upcoming Kickstarter, what's going to be embedded with it, that's where it's all going to come from. So be sure to go to Simple Polytricks. Go to your Facebook page, type in Simple Polytricks with an X at the end, and you will find it. Guaranteed, it'll be the first thing going there. Be sure to like it. Be sure to follow it if you're interested in it. It'll keep you up to date. I don't bombard posts like so many companies do. I just post when cool stuff that we do is happening that is important to potential customers. So, all right, until then, we will meet back on Wednesday, same time, same bat channel, and really enjoyed it. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you. Have a good couple of days. Bye.